Hi, friends. This is Colin Richards, president and founder of Lord & Richards. And once again, I'm excited to be with you today on this episode of the Lord & Richards Show. And today we're going to be beginning, as we always do, with a biblical principle, a principle that teaches us why most types of debt are actually bad. Now, if you've listened to me enough, you'll know that I believe there are certain kinds of debt that are okay. Unlike some people who might paint with a broad brush, I think we can get a little bit more granular about debt. But as we begin today, I want to share with you Proverbs 17:18. It says, "One who lacks sense gives a pledge and puts up security in the presence of his neighbor." So this is dealing with the idea that we're stepping in to help. We're putting up pledge. We're putting up security. And we can include in this the idea of, as good-natured people, we often want to step in and help family or friends going through financial challenges. But at Lord & Richards, we're always bringing things through the lens of the Bible's point of view on money. And what we ultimately do, our long-range goal for all of our families that we work with, is we want you to eventually be able to retire financially free. And we come alongside of you and we build a plan to help you achieve that so you can retire without worry. And then we want you to be financially free so that you can do amazing things for God with the bountiful resources that He's placed at your disposal. Not just so we can eat, drink, and be merry, sit back and enjoy the good life, but so that we can continue to be resources in the hands of God for the kingdom. And sometimes we can undermine our own plans and God's plans through good-natured lending. One of the ways we sometimes help family and friends is to co-sign on a loan. What our text today calls putting up security. That means coming alongside of somebody with less than stellar credit and adding your fantastic credit picture to that transaction, whether it's for a car and so forth. Well, I think this can be a great idea for parents working with their children, helping to get them off the ground in the early days before they've established their own credit. Being able to rent, for example, an apartment or a condo requires that you have good credit or often security. But if we go much beyond those that we love enough that we would consider it a gift if they weren't able to pay, we would actually step up and be fine with that. When we go outside of that circle, it gets a little dangerous. And by the way, it can be dangerous inside of that circle. I've seen children drain the resources of their parents such that the parents can't even retire or have the retirement freedom that they have been working so hard for. So we got to be careful with that and pray much about that decision. But if and when your family or friend fails to make the payments, you're going to have to make good on that loan. And it happens a lot. So you have to decide in advance, am I willing to make that as a gift if it comes to that? And am I still going to be okay in my financial picture, right? Have we worked carefully with our financial planners at Lord & Richards to determine that we have the capacity to do that without damaging our own ability to impact the kingdom? So here's a question. If the person defaults, are you completely comfortable with assuming the payments and letting them to continue to use the item for free, whether that's an appliance, a car, or a home? Sometimes as we think things through like that, we realize, I may not be that interested in stepping in and making payments on an item that isn't mine. So here's an alternative. Would this family member or your friend be more likely to mature and grow through the financial challenge if they don't obtain their loan until the credit is good enough? In other words, could they forego what they might think is a necessity because you now are helping them to develop a more mature outlook? Are you enabling them to continue bad behavior and keeping them from learning through the challenge? That's an important question, right? Are you potentially keeping them from learning to depend on the Lord and the promises in His Word that assure us that He will provide our needs, not necessarily all of our wants? And here's a big thought. Would it just be better for you to give them that item as a gift outright? Sometimes folks go through things that are out of their control, right? Circumstances that create a genuine financial hardship. Could your gift help give them a leg up and a new financial start? That's a different perspective than maybe being an enabler of excessive debt. So think carefully and wisely. And I think it's great to talk this through with a professional who has seen this type of activity and worked with families through these types of situations. And that's just what we do at Lord & Richards. As we help you develop a comprehensive plan, we can be a sounding board for you throughout your retirement years about these kinds of economic decisions. So this brings up a discussion of debt in general. So the Bible says the borrower is servant to the lender, a slave to the lender. So wouldn't you agree that probably most kinds of debt we should try to avoid? Consumer debt, for example, credit cards, of course, payday loans, all of these things should be rigorously avoided. Car debt should only be used if rates are extremely low. And there are opportunities with that, and I call that using other people's money. That means the rates are so low, say 2%, 3%, that you are able to actually stay ahead of things. Cars are generally a depreciating asset unless you get a classic vehicle or something. But car debt is more attractive when the car has a track record of an extremely high resale value. So if you're working with vehicles that over the course of your payment period are going to be worth more than the debt that remains, then that's okay. But if your car is going to rapidly depreciate and be worth less than the debt remains, that's not okay. How about houses? Well, home debt can be wise. I know there are people who will tell you there's no reason for debt everywhere. Well, why does the Bible give so much time and attention to the handling of it? Even so far as developing a beautiful time of release called the Year of Jubilee every 70th year. So debt is an understandable way to purchase a home in an economy like ours, especially in some of the areas where our clients live, where house pricing is so far out of reach, unless you're willing to get a home loan. Realize that if you continue with rent, a lot of times you're just pouring money into an asset you will never own. You're not using that capital wisely. And if you continue with rent, it puts you at the mercy of the landlord in terms of the time that you can occupy that home or that apartment, as well as the price. It can just go up indiscriminately. You have no control. Whereas if you use debt wisely for a home loan at low interest rates, not the kind of high interest rates we're seeing now, I would suggest waiting for normalization of interest rates. But if you purchase a home and you have a good, reasonable 3 or 4% rate or below, then you can actually participate in the American dream and you get yourself an asset that offsets the debt on your balance sheet. That's thinking like a business person. Can the home go down in value? Absolutely. A home should be seen as a very long-term investment. Moving regularly will depreciate your capital. So when you buy a home, make a long-term plan to have that home. Well, in our next segment, we're going to move into the area of investments. But I want to talk to you. I want to have a connection with you over this and many other subjects around the idea of retirement freedom. At Lord & Richards, we call it a retirement freedom review. It's completely free to you, and it'll give you the sense and the security to know that you're in great shape financially, either going into or if you're already in retirement. It simply starts with a phone call.